All right, so welcome everyone to the second episode of the Philippine Cricket Podcast. I'm here today with a special guest who is the captain of the Philippine Carabaos, the men's national team. He has a high score of 120 not out, best bowling of 8 for 36. So quite obviously he's a all-round player. Welcome to the show, Jonathan Hill. How are you today?
I'm very good, thanks, Trav. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
My pleasure. So today, Jono, we want to talk about kind of your experiences as a cricketer and tying that into playing with the Philippines. But before we get into some of the Philippine stuff, can you tell me a little bit about where cricket started for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I would have to say it started in the backyard with my dad in Gosford, so on the central coast of just above Sydney in New South Wales. And we used to play every single afternoon. And then it really took off when I went to school in Sydney. And I never actually joined a cricket club until leaving school. But when I was at school, I was just obsessed with it. We used to play every afternoon, and then I played in my school team. And, you know, I would read books on cricket and Don Bradman and Victor Trumper and the Bodyline series and the West Indians. And I just fell in love with the game from a really early age. And I idolized players like Alan Border, Dean Jones, Terry Alderman. You know, some of my earliest memories are staying up late watching the Ashes in England. So, yeah, from about the age of 6 or 7, I've just always been in love with cricket.
Yeah, cool. So kind of from there, you kind of said you didn't really play club cricket as a junior, but kind of what was the transition like going from kind of school into senior cricket, and kind of can you tell us a bit about kind of your club cricket experience?
Yeah, it was. So I played cricket all the way through school up until the age of 17. And then upon leaving school, I had my first season in the Sydney grade comp, and I played with Gordon District Cricket Club. And I played 4th grade. And it was a huge, monumental jump from playing school cricket to grade cricket because it was really tough. And you were playing with grown men who would let you know all about it. They were quite intimidating, really aggressive. And so, yeah, for those first few years of playing grade cricket, I was really sort of finding my feet, and I had to sort of develop almost like a Steve Waugh mental toughness with the whole thing. Yeah, it was quite confronting. Lots and lots of failures, you know, scrounging around in 4th grade to 6th grade to 5th grade. I then had a season in Shires. I played with Roseville in the Shires comp, which is a different competition in Sydney. And that's where I got to play with a group of guys who really taught me more about the game and gave me confidence to do well.
Yeah, cool. So from there, if I'm not mistaken, you moved down to the beautiful south coast of New South Wales, and
it was sort of, yeah, there was basically I played with Gordon, and then I went to North Sydney for a season.
okay.
And then I played that season in Shires, and then I went back to grade, and I actually played with Blacktown Cricket Club when they had their first season in grade cricket at Joe McAleer Oval. So I had a season there, and then I went to Mossman Cricket Club. So I've been around. And then Mossman Cricket Club in Sydney is where I played most of my grade cricket. I had 4 seasons there, predominantly 2nd grade, but I did make my 1st grade debut against Fairfield Liverpool, and Grant Lambert nearly took my head off with a very, very fast bouncer, which was easily 150 k's an hour. I literally ended up on the ground. So yeah, and then after that, then I moved down to Jervis Bay and played down there at Bay and Basin.
Yeah, so kind of moving from there down to the south coast, can you tell me a little bit about Bay and Basin? You played a lot of cricket with Bay and Basin, mostly 1st grade, and you had the chance to captain them for a few seasons as well. Can you tell me a little bit about what cricket's like in the south coast and what your experiences were there?
Yeah, really, really different to Sydney grade cricket. It's really tricky. So in many ways, it's a lot more relaxed because it's more of a social game. But then you do come against some really super aggressive teams, and the sledging's like relentless. But I still play for Bay and Basin, and I've played more than 100 first grade games, and it's a club that I'm probably going to stay with for the rest of my life. Really, really lovely group of guys that just love playing cricket, and they love getting out there, trying their best. We're located in the Jervis Bay region, so we're sort of about half an hour away from Nowra, and Nowra is like a big town centre. And so we pull on players all the way from Sussex Inlet, St George's Basin, Vincennia, Huskisson, this whole region. So it's still a growing club, and we actually haven't won a first grade title yet. So that's very much something that we want to do in the years to come. But yeah, I was really fortunate to captain them for a few years, and that was a great honour and a privilege. And it's really encouraging to see the young players come through and play in those top grades. So both my boys actually are going to play their first season of club cricket this year, which is really exciting.
Oh, that's excellent. So we'll have another generation of Hills coming through the ranks then.
Yeah.
So while you were down on the South Coast as well, you had the opportunity to play some pretty high level cricket in the New South Wales Country Championships with the Southern Zone. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience there, and maybe some of the memories kind of things that you take from playing at that kind of level against really good cricketers?
Yeah, look, I was really surprised when I first moved down, because when you play in Sydney, you sort of have that mindset that Sydney grade cricket is just the best in the world, which is really arrogant when you think about it now. But when I moved down and I realised there was this whole alternate pathway through country New South Wales and country Australia, where players could get to wear the baggy green or make their way into a stateside. And so from Bay and Basin, that's part of the Shoalhaven competition. And then so Shoalhaven have a rep team. From that, you can get selected to Southern Zone. And so from Southern Zone, you're actually playing against the best country cricketers in New South Wales. And so I was really lucky to be selected to play in that for five tournaments in a row. And I was astounded at the level. Like, it was high quality cricket. The matches back then, I mean, I know these days there's a real 2020 is really in vogue, but back then it was hard cricket, and there were 60 over matches. So, you know, you can imagine playing a week of cricket, playing maybe 4 or 5 60 over matches. We were exhausted by the end of it. But the positive was the cricket was just really tough, and you learnt a lot about your game, what you could do, what you needed to improve on, and you got to really marvel at the skill of these other cricketers who were seasoned veterans that had, you know, played at a high level for many, many years. And we were really lucky. We got to play in Dubbo, we played in Wagga, we played on the Central Coast. We got to play in all of these amazing places, and the wickets were first class. So, yeah, it was a really good experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And so from there, I guess, like that gives a bit of an overview of your domestic cricket kind of experience in Australia. But kind of what our viewers would like to know is, how did you get involved with the Philippine cricket team? Can you tell me a little bit about how that came about, and then maybe also like what the early years of playing for the Philippines was like?
Yeah, I can definitely share that with you. I remember, I think it was, would have been 2012 or the end of 2011. Around that time, I was just on the ICC website having a look at some results. And then down the bottom, I saw all of these different links. It's like affiliate nations or sub-affiliate nations, etc. And there were all of these national flags. And then I had to do a double take. I saw the Philippines flag there. And I was like, what's going on here? And then, so I clicked on it, and the details came up for Ian Sinclair, and it said that the Philippine Cricket Association existed, and it was a affiliate member or something to that extent. Anyway, the email address was there, and so that night I sent off an email outlining my passion for cricket and the experience that I'd had over the years, and I got a reply the next day from Ian Sinclair, just saying, you know, that would be great to have you on board, but you really need a passport. Can you get one of those? If so, we'd love to have you over in Manila to play a few games, to try out for the squad. And so at that stage, when I was emailing Ian, there actually wasn't no one of Filipino origin had yet represented the Philippines. And so I was actually really nervous. I was like having conversations with my wife, and I was like, no one's done this before. And she's like, well, there's a reason no one's done this before. And I was like, no, but I think I want to do it. I think I want to get a passport, and I want to see what it's like playing cricket in the Philippines. And if I do it, then hopefully that'll inspire other people to, other people who are Filipino cricketers to hopefully come over and join the team. And so I remember getting the passport, and I was just so nervous. And then after the passport, Ian was like, yep, we'll arrange flights and everything. And so I was over there. And then by the end of that year, I was my second son. So my second son is Sachin. He was only 2 weeks old. And I flew over, left him, left everyone. And I flew over to Manila, and I stayed there for 2 weeks. And I played for Nomads in the domestic competition out at not Nomad Stadium, but the Nomad Sports Complex, on a dirt rolled wicket. And it was the most nervous I'd ever been in my whole life. All I could think of was, oh no, imagine if I come over and I'm no good, or I come over and I just get 3 ducks in a row. And thankfully I did all right. But that was the early days. And so from there, there were a few tours organized to Hong Kong. But those early days it was really interesting just to play in Manila. I had to sort of pinch myself. I was playing against a whole range of, Indians and Pakistanis, and there were a few other cultures there. But we were all just having fun, and they were really interested as to why I wanted to come over and play. But yeah, it was good fun, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah. And so from there, kind of a few tours of Hong Kong came up. That was kind of an annual trip for the Philippines to play against some of the Hong Kong's kind of representative sides. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of your first few ICC tours? So to Lismore and Bendigo, like what was the kind of standard of cricket like kind of going into a full ICC tournament, and kind of how has that kind of developed you as a cricketer, and also like as a nation? What have you seen from a Philippines like development point?
I've noticed, I've been involved in a few of these ICC tournaments now, and probably the standout feature of that is that every single time we meet, every team has improved significantly, probably in particular Indonesia and Japan. But it's really interesting to see how we have these tournaments, for example, Lismore, and then you come back a few years later in Bendigo, and the level of improvement is extensive. And I think the Philippines are really doing a good job with the work that yourself and everyone else is doing. Everyone's really lifting their game. But the first tournament I was involved in was Lismore, and it was really unfortunate because in a trial game, we played a couple of trial games before the actual tournament. I ran a quick single, and then halfway down the pitch, I felt this pop in my left hamstring, and so it actually ended in tragedy. I did a grade 2 tear on my hamstring, and I didn't get to play a single game of that tournament in Lismore. Wow. But I was lucky enough to, I hung out. Faisal said, definitely stay with the team. You're part of the team. You're part of the squad. And so it got to the third day, and I was actually able to walk. And so I carried drinks for the whole 2 weeks. And it was incredible. It was incredible I think we had 8 teams that were competing then. Cook Islands were involved, Indonesia, Samoa, Fiji. And I was just astounded at, the fact that these different cultures and these different nations took their cricket so seriously. And the thing that really struck me with that was PNG. PNG back then, I remember we played them and they beat us comprehensively. But then afterwards, they sort of formed this huddle and they started singing. It almost looked like not a prayer so much as like some type of team song. And I just thought, wow, this is just incredible. Every nation is competing, but they are bringing their own culture with them. And so there and then I knew it was something really special to be involved in. playing for the
Yeah, cool.
Philippines.
You had a bit of a tragedy, obviously, with not being able to play. But then, obviously, a couple of years later, Bendigo happened. I remember one innings in particular where Vanuatu were dominating, and Ian, who was the coach at the time, was telling all the batsmen, just stay there, don't get bowled out. We've got 50 overs to bat. And I remember you batting for maybe 130, 140 balls, just doggedly sticking it out. And I thought, when I saw that, that was for me. I went, this guy's got a little bit of something about him. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of to go from Lismore to actually get the chance to play properly in a tournament? And from there, kind of, how did that kind of turn into what happened next with the tournament in the Philippines, I guess?
Yeah, so playing in Bendigo was really exciting because it had been a really long wait. It was another 3 years for this ICC tournament to take place. The other exciting element was it was 50 overs, as well as, I think, did we play any T20s then? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, I mean, coming up against that opposition, I do remember the match you were talking about with Vanuatu. They were really fired up. And I remember Ian's instructions. It was just like, just stay there, you need to take pride in the fact that you're representing the Philippines. And yeah, I remember sticking it out, but they were very quick to remind me of how slow I was scoring when I was out there the whole time. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter because I knew that I was representing the Philippines, and I just wanted to let them know that we weren't just going to roll over and lose. It was really important to sort of stand our ground, make sure that we concentrated hard. That tournament was incredible because Bendigo is such an old city, and I just have really strong memories of the architecture at some of these grounds, as well as the city itself was quite breathtaking. And the closing function and the opening function was also really special, because we got to meet a lot of the community members and we got to mix with the other teams. Probably one of the fondest memories was going to both the teams would go on the same bus, and we would go on the bus with the Samoans. And before the match, they would sing and sing and sing and sing and sing. And it was just incredible because not many of us can speak Tagalog, unfortunately. And so we didn't really sort of have anything that we could sing, but we were just in awe of the fact that they were so together and they were having fun, and they were really keen for us to sort of join in the fun of playing international cricket, which was really special.
For sure, definitely. So kind of from Bendigo, the next tournament that the Philippines featured in saw a bit of a changing of the guard, with yourself named as the first Filipino to captain the side. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of leading up to that tournament, what the feeling was like, kind of getting to lead the side, but also can you tell us a little bit about your experiences in that tournament?
So leading up to that tournament, I was really excited. It was a huge honor and even a surprise, really, to be appointed the captain, the third captain after Faisal and Ali. And so, I was really excited about that and quite chuffed that the Filipino Association saw leadership potential in me to lead the team at what was going to be a really important home tournament in Manila at Friendship Oval. And so as best as I could, I had a few net sessions with Dan Smith, who lives in Sydney, leading up to that. And obviously I was doing my own training with my club myself. But the feeling, unfortunately, Ian Sinclair passed away leading up to that, which was a huge loss because he was so instrumental in establishing cricket in the Philippines. And so, I think he was with us, and, he's with us on our uniforms and everything. And he was very much in the back of our minds when we were playing, because we really wanted to do him proud and we wanted to do the Philippines proud at home. And so, when we got together, there were extensive team talks. I remember that we wouldn't go overboard, but we would definitely take time aside to, really discuss what does it mean to play for the Philippines. this is really important, and we wanted to honor his memory. And so some of the games were absolute, down to the last ball kind of games. And it was just incredible to see the guys remain calm and patient and just go through those processes that we talked about. And the amount of support we had, not only in the Philippines, but sort of back in Australia and other parts of the world. People were sort of watching the score online, and I had family members texting me afterwards saying that they were watching every single ball and getting really excited. But yeah, I mean, some of those victories came right down to the wire. And it was just, we were jubilant at the end. It was just so exciting to, win that tournament on home soil. I remember that on that afternoon when we won, a massive rainbow sort of was in the sky. And, there and then we thought, wow, okay, Ian Sinclair's with us. That's pretty special.
Yeah, for sure. So just to kind of give a little bit of insight to people that probably haven't been around the playing group or can't necessarily get themselves to matches, one thing that impressed me a lot during that tournament and also the subsequent tournament in Papua New Guinea was the way you kind of choose when to speak. You're a very inspiring speaker, but you're not always vocal like all the time. You kind of pick and choose. So can you tell people a little bit about the messaging that you were giving the players about what it means to represent the Philippines at that time, and also what, in your opinion, makes a good leader?
I would say that the messaging around the team, and we spoke about this sort of with the senior players and the coaching staff, we really wanted to get across that point that even though we don't all live in the Philippines, and some of the people playing in the team, they're expats who have lived in the Philippines for a certain length of time, we're all bound together by our love of cricket and our love of the Philippines. And we came up with the catch cry, "Sama Sama Tayo," "Sama Sama Tayo," which we sort of say it now, sort of before we go out and every wicket that we take. But basically, the whole crux of that was basically together as one. So everything we do, we're doing it together. So that sort of extended to basically when we were in the hotels, we'd sort of have our dinners together, have our breakfast together. And then as much as possible, we spent time together and we talked about the importance of having that togetherness on the cricket field, especially when things aren't going well. Because, cricket's one of those games where a lot of the time you're faced with adversity, and when the pressure's on, the good teams are the ones that could stay together and just sort of remain composed and calm and have a clear vision of what they want to achieve. And so that sense of togetherness was probably the key message around that time. What was the second part to your question?
Yeah,
leadership. That's right. So for me, I think it's imperative to lead by example. I grew up idolizing Steve Waugh. He was a cricketer from New South Wales, and he played for Australia. And he was a really sort of, wasn't the most natural cricketer around, but he just had this innate sense of determination and like a real steeliness about how he played the game. He didn't really want to give anyone an inch. And so I admired him as a leader because he led by example. And I got the impression that he was a man of few words as well. But when he spoke, people really listened. So I think, leaders obviously need to lead by example. I think they need to know how to trust their players as well, and trust that they will make mistakes, and that's all right because people are going to learn from them. And I think probably another value that I believe leadership to entail is honesty. I think you really need to be honest with yourself and with your players in order to get the best out of them.
Yeah, very cool. So I guess kind of rounding off the Philippine side of playing and captaining, PNG tour kind of saw us leapfrog into second place in our region, which is really cool. With a tournament coming up in October this year, if it goes ahead, in Japan. What do you see kind of the Philippines' chances there? What would you like to see out of the team? What do you think can be achieved there?
I think that from that victory in PNG, which was astounding. I don't know if the listeners, they probably might have heard bits and pieces of it with episode 1, but it was absolutely amazing to be involved in a 5-over cricket match, a 5-over match that we ended up winning against Vanuatu, and that was our first ever victory against Vanuatu ever. I think that really instilled a sense of confidence in all of the players and the whole PCA about what could be achieved. And so I think taking that momentum forward, I think that we're a really strong chance of competing really well in Japan. And, if the tournament does go ahead, it's most definitely our goal would be to win that tournament. We had a training camp in Sydney 3 weeks ago, and that was for all of the Filipino Australian-based players. We came there and we played some cricket together for the first time. For a lot of us, it was the first time to meet these other guys. And so in the space of 3 days, we played 3 games against some quality opposition in Blacktown. And from that, I was, myself and the other senior players were just so positive about the whole experience. We've got some really crisp hitters of the ball, guys that know their zones and know where they can hit it and can really execute well. And we've unearthed a few spinners as well, a leg spinner and an off spinner. And we know how valuable they are in T20 cricket if they can land them. So, moving forward, I think that things are really positive because there's now a larger pool of Filipino players, and people are going to be competing for a spot in the Filipino team. It's not sort of at a point where, oh yeah, you have a passport, you can play. It's you have a passport, you're competing against these other guys, and I think that's going to strengthen Filipino cricket for the future.
Yeah, most definitely. So is there anything that stands out in your kind of cricket journey for the Philippines as a favorite moment, or something that's like a highlight so far?
I think the tournament in Manila would definitely go down as a highlight because there was just so much emotion wrapped in that, and the standard of cricket, the standard of the South Koreans was just completely unexpected. They were amazing. They were so fast in the field, and their bowling lines were so accurate, and they had one batsman who just was hitting sixes for fun. And so to overcome that adversity and get through and win that tournament on home soil, that would probably be a highlight for me, as well as those early days in Hong Kong, where these weren't ICC sanctioned tournaments, but there was still a chance for the Filipino team to represent the Philippines. That will always be special. I still remember putting on, in fact, I can rewind, before that Hong Kong tour, I was at the airport in Manila, and Ian and Faisal were rummaging through their bag, and then they just sort of picked out this baseball Filipino hat. Oh, here's your hat, by the way, to wear. And he sort of just handed it to me. And I was just like, can we do that again? But can I get a photo, and can you kind of present it to me? Because there'd been so much growing up for me. It was always, the baggy green. And here I was getting my Filipino cricket cap. And so, yeah, I remember that moment vividly. So we sort of did it again, and I got someone to take a photo, and I've still got that photo of being presented with my Filipino cap. It was a really proud moment.
Yeah, very cool. And it's something we've definitely seen change since that, with new players coming into both the men's and the women's team, that everyone's properly and officially presented their cap now. So it's a really special moment for any player. And it's good to see that that's happening now rather than at an airport. So kind of to round off the Philippine questions, you've spent a lot of time in the Philippines. Can you give us a few of your favorite things to do when you're in the Philippines?
Oh, I love Jollibee. I absolutely love Jollibee. But I love going to the markets. I love the markets, and I love eating grilled fish, barbecued fish at the markets. Even getting chomporado for breakfast on the side of the road. One thing about this whole journey of playing cricket for the Philippines is it's really connected me in a strong way with my mum's culture. And so learning more about her heritage in Davao, down in Mindanao, and learning about our family history and our ties to the indigenous tribes down there, it actually inspired me to spend some time in Baguio. And I went up there in 2014 and 2015 and actually got a batik, a traditional Filipino tattoo up there. And that was just so special. I had mum with me actually then. She came both times. And we stayed up there, and I was just blown away with how beautiful it is in the mountains. And just the culture is so rich and strong. But probably my favorite Filipino cuisine, other than pork adobo, is lumpia. My mum makes the best lumpia ever. And she always makes it for my birthday, and I love having that with a little bit of vinegar and rice, and as well as some.
So good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, cool. So kind of just to round things off a little bit, and to take it in a slightly different direction before we close this off, can you tell me a little bit about like kind of what you do for work?
Yeah, sure. So I work as an Aboriginal language teacher. I work at a school just on the south coast of Vincennia High, and we run a language program where every single child in Year 7, whether they're Aboriginal or not, they have to learn the local language, which is Thurga. And so, yeah, I've got the privilege of teaching that language. And I do that in conjunction with the elders and community members. And so that's something I'm really passionate about. I've been involved in Indigenous education now for about 16 years. And I've spent time working up the top of Australia in the Northern Territory, as well as down here, as well as in Sydney. But at the moment, yeah, I'm working on this language program and I'm really enjoying it. The kids really love it and I love it, which is great. And it's really bringing culture back, and it's bringing the language back into use, which is really important.
Yeah, excellent. It's great to see that there's programs like that going on as well, and to see you involved in it. I know it's something you're passionate about, and yeah, I hope that it continues and kind of expands through more different schools in Australia, and not just in Australia but around the world. I think it's really important to give people an idea about the culture of the place they're in or they're from. So one last kind of question. What does a regular week look like for John O'Hill?
So a regular week looks like, so school Monday to Friday, but I've got 3 gorgeous young kids and a beautiful wife. So the 3 kids, they're now at the age where they attend school. So we have to get them ready for school. They get the bus into town, which is about a half-hour bus ride. But then they'll come back in the afternoon. We all sort of get home around the same time. And my boys in particular, they've sort of hit this age now. Ewan is 10 and Sachin is 8, and they are properly obsessed with cricket. And so, it's not even cricket season now, but our afternoons still entail backyard cricket. And we have to make our own rules because the balls keep getting hit over the fence. And, even if it's 6 and out, they still just love swinging the bat. And so, days I'm at school, afternoons I'm playing a bit of backyard cricket. Every Saturday morning, however, I do take my daughter out. We have a date. We go to a local cafe down the road, and then we'll sort of go for a walk or a swim or go to the bike track. And so, yeah, it's school, cricket, Saturday mornings with Frida, and then I'm at the beach. So I'm really lucky to live near the water. And if there's waves, I'm body surfing. Definitely body surfing in the ocean because I love it. Yeah, or bushwalking barefoot as well. So that's basically my week.
Yeah, cool. All right. So firstly, thank you very much for coming on today. It's been brilliant to have a chat with you and to kind of learn a little bit about yourself and your journey in Philippine cricket. Like to thank everyone for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. So as we sign out, peace out, and thank you, Jono. Take care.
No worries. Thank you so much.